Let's try a quick joke for my joke practice before we dive into it. This one's a little bit political, so if that's offensive, you can fast forward it here. But here we go. Got to do my joke practice. So, it's strange that so many different peoples have their own distinct war cry. You go out through history and people are fighting each other and whatnot, and they all have like their own kind of war cry. Because the reason it's funny is because you would think that the last thing you would want to do on the battlefield is cry, but they all have a war cry, which seems like an oxymoron kind of thing. Like if I was on a battlefield, I would want some kind of like blood curdling scream that makes the other people cry. I don't want to be the one crying. I want to be screaming something like terrifying. I'm thinking it should be used. It should be called like something like the bone melting bellow. I don't want to cry. I want a bone melting bellow or something like that. But I'm thinking what happened is it probably was called something like a bone melting bellow back in the day. But then like the progressive got a hold of it. The progressives got a hold of it and they deconstructed it. And then they turned it into a form of crying. It's like it's a bone melting bellow, you progressive deconstructivist. No, that's the wrong term. It's now called, it's a war cry. And like, oh my, and how could they even do these we see it all the time. It's like, how do they do that? How do they take something that was great and then they turn it into something lame? How does it happen? And I think we now see how they play this manipulative game. So it goes something like this. If you wanted to turn the war cry or the bone curdling bellow into a form of crying, this is what you do. You're going to say, step one, you use the deconstructionist mind theory set to rename the thing to something gay. And then like it's the same thing they did when they were calling straight people sissies. Because you have to call all the straight people sissies because it's not offensive. Otherwise that's the not offensive term. And then step two, then you outlaw the old name of the thing, claiming it's somehow offensive. People who utter the old outlawed word now being labeled as equivalent to like Satan himself, right? If you utter the old word that it used to be, now you're like evil. And then step three, you change the dictionary retroactively, really sneaky like. You change it retroactively to codify the new name as though it's always been that way. What do you mean? Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. It's always been. And then step four, you slowly change the actual thing to coincide with the new gay name that they gave it, right? It was something cool, and then you named it something lame, and then you made the thing that was cool coincide to the name that's lame. And then step five, you create laws and regulations using the new lame name and define and the definition of the once but no longer effective thing. And now you've done it. You've accomplished something. They used to be terrified from the bone melting bellow, but now you've turned it into just like, in short, the blood melting bellow was, as with so many things the progressives get a hold of, emasculated to the point of the modern form we are now so familiar with. Now it's just called, it's not even called a war cry anymore. It's just called the cry. It's just called the cry, for crying out loud. I have no doubt that if the progressives got their way, our military would be on the battlefield, crying at the enemy. Literally. Although quite effective, the crying is quite effective against like kind-hearted Americans who don't want to be cruel or anything. They don't want to be called cruel. I get it. Attempting to adhere to the newly progressively defined definition of what it means to be like a gentleman or a gentle woman, or as it's now required to be called, the new popularized ambiguous term, gentle person. But I don't think it's going to work against people that actually hate us. I don't think that's going to work.